Hey, welcome back to the Field and Faith podcast. I'm Chris Barden. Joined with me, as always, is
Luke Detress.
Yeah, here we go. We're going to go into a topic today that I thought it was kind of interesting. We're going to dive later on, most likely, into all the statistics of fatherless kids and why we as men are investing in living out this call to be a father to the fatherless. But along with that, we also wanted to create a community of guys that were able to communicate with one another, support one another, and help each other out with our own kids and raising them well. So we're going to go into some statistics and discuss the growing trend, I think, a lot of the times, which is the struggle of fathering kids today. And this concept or statistic that I really like is that 62% of dads are looking for ways to better be a father. Because I think a lot of the ways that where we were raised by our own dads, if we had a father in our life, wasn't necessarily the way that parenting has gone now and the trends and stuff like that. But gaining new skills, gaining new ideas of what it means to be a good dad has changed over time, because some of us, Mr. Luke, has been a dad. How old is Maddie?
She'll be 13 soon.
13. So how has parenting changed in 13 years of just styles?
Well, I know from having 3 different kids that it's 3 different parenting techniques because each kid is unique to their own. Even more so than boy, girl, to their personalities and the way they do things and the way they react to things versus their emotions and whatever it may be is so substantially different, which is insane to think about, that you can have 2 people make a child and get 3 completely different variations on it.
And with each one, I'm just a third party in observation to raising kids. But it is very much of how you speak to one, you can't speak to the other. If you were to do this to one, the other one would be like mad jealous or frustrated. And then the other one just doesn't care about anything that's going on in the situation and just wants his peaches.
Yeah, it's funny, like, right, they'll go through the same phases of life, right? Terrible twos and, the middle 8-8-year-old, 9-year-olds are just confused in general. And then, the prepubescent hormonal stage, they're all going to go through that, but they still react differently through each one of them.
Yeah. With this being said, like, if we're honest, I think the call of Christ is to continually better our lives, that like not to be satisfied. We've talked about dying to oneself on this podcast before. And I think when we're honest with ourselves and we're saying, hey, I want to be a good dad, there's more into it than just saying it. I think words a lot of the times are extremely empty. I think as a kid, we could probably look back at the people who raised us and talk to us and realize that like there's a lot of empty words that get said. And so when I look at the statistic and it says like, okay, 62% of men who are dads are looking to become better, but like, what does that mean? And I'm going to ask you, like, what are some things, what advice would you say as a parent you've done that has made you a better father? Because I would love to see like a group of guys like sharing different ways, because not one way is any better than the other, I think, and searching things out. Like there has to just be like people like, oh, I'm unaware of this event going on in the city. So what have you done to make yourself a good dad?
Well, I think the hardest part that I feel like all of us men deal with is probably the shame of always feeling like we're not good enough. So I think that's even a struggle that I still deal with every single day of, gosh, I just made this mistake, or I put so much pressure or stress on myself of like, oh, man, why did I yell? Why did I say this? Why did I do this? And I think that's probably one of the hardest things. I think one of the ways that I've done something better is to give myself a little bit more grace of like, man, I can't believe I did this, but I have the opportunity to make it up, right? And I'll give myself that moment and go and talk and have that conversation of why and apologize and just be forthcoming with the situation. But I think probably one of the single biggest things we can do as men to be better with the people around us, especially, is to face those fears and faults that we have, right? how do we be better with our family and the people around us is to move on and find the things that we're failing ourselves all the time. Of like the shame or the guilt or whatever it may be that we're holding on to is really the best way. Like, how do you make yourself better? You have to make yourself better in order to be a better father, a better husband, a better brother.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, if we are looking at it and saying like, okay, so 62% of these guys, they want that, but it's that shame guilt thing that shows us that internal dialogue that says like, oh, I'm not good enough. And I think like a record, you keep playing it over and over and over again in your head of what you are. It can severely impact, like almost like depression in a sense of like, hey, I'm not doing enough. Or, we live in the world where we're watching what other guys are doing with their kids. And, you may not have the financial means to take your kids out on a boat and, go wakeboarding on the weekend or something like that. You just don't have the financial means to kind of compete on like a social standard for a lot of things. So the everyday grind is going back to what we've discussed this before, is that presence aspect of things. And I think you're really good at that. Is just like, when you are with somebody, you're investing in them, whatever that may be, the discussion that you're having or working things out, or, carving time in your day, every day, or twice a week or 3 times a week, given your own schedule, to really make that value being placed back towards your kids so that they're feeling important in your life.
And I would even say this too, like, right, as we might be talking about kids right now, but you can put this practice into every relationship with a girlfriend or a wife or a coworker or a boss or even a sibling that you might be struggling with, or a friend. Like, these same practices can be put into play. And I think, especially from like a father standpoint, I think if you look at the generational parenting, right, you have 20-year gaps, a lot of times 30-year gaps in raising children. So things just naturally change of how styles are. And I think even more so, where I struggle with a lot is we're in a generation now where we can see other dads on social media, right? You have the Instagram dads and the TikTok dads that are doing all these fun things, but it's like, realistically, they're showing a brief second of something they might be doing with their kids having fun, and they could just be doing that to put on social media.
Dude, like, I don't know if it's not a dad, but it was like the mom. She had like a podcast or a show or something like that. And she's now like probably facing up to like a certain amount of time in jail because she abused her kids, like neglect, like child abuse, like to a point where it's like everyone was looking at her being like, oh, it must be good. Look at how this person is. And now it's like, wait, what the heck just happened? Because, I mean, I work with videos. I work with podcasts. I know that if we say something really dumb, I just have to find it, cut it, and then add back in the conversation. And we just act like it never even took place. And you can do that on social media, but man, you don't get to cut out like some of the things that we say to our kids, some of the things that we do or necessarily don't do with our kids. You can be just as hurtful and just as harmful by saying no as you do saying yes to certain things. And I think there's like the healthy divide of, saying yes all the time. And then there's unhealthy divide saying no all the time. There's that give and take. I think it's parenting with your spouse and trying to like navigate the two ditches. I would put it in a metaphor, like there's a ditch on one side of the road and a ditch on the other side of the road. Like those are your yeses and nos of what you're going to do with your time. You got to stay in the path on the road. And a lot of times like not going too far one way or the other.
Yeah. It's hard, I think that's one area where me and my wife fight a lot. And probably the only area where I won't even say fight, because we don't fight anymore, which is crazy because our first 5 years of marriage were a good amount of fighting. And I think that's fairly normal. But now the only thing we really disagree on is the way we parent and the way we discipline. And she works in social work and went to school for all this kind of stuff. So she understands the internal emotional aspects of child growth. And I know the physical aspects and what I understand from what I know of my own growing up and what worked and what didn't work. So it's, it's an area where we we argue a lot of, she worries about the emotional aspects of our children, and I worry about the future aspects of our children, of where I want them to go and grow. We look at Proverbs 22:6, teach a child in the way they should go. And to me, everybody can get this wrong, or everybody can choose to understand this their own way, but emotions are fleeting and they're temporary, where, I'd try not to focus necessarily on the emotional aspects of it, which is probably wrong a lot of the times. I'll admit that, I'm probably wrong a lot.
Well, I don't know if you're necessarily wrong. If we were to look back, like when we were growing up, like nobody ever discussed your emotions. There was no safe space. There was no like, hey guys, you need to discuss your emotions. And now there is a lot more talk around mental health, and I'm an advocate for that. I wrote an entire blog book on buildarsenal.com if you're ever interested. And we'll talk probably more about that later. But like what I've done with the research, and it is like knowing it, but at the exact same time, I always say this, is that there is a point where you have to stop with the emotional side of things, because you can just keep going down the rabbit hole of emotions. You can still feel hurt, pain, whatever, but it's like that buffalo story. It's like either you choose to run into the storm or you choose to run away from the storm. And either way, you're going to be in the storm. It's just a matter of how long and what are you going to get out of it, and which direction are you going to be proud of yourself afterwards for it. I agree with you 100%. The way that you raise guys versus girls is 100% different. Like there's girl dads and there's guy dads, and there's statistics on like the more you roughhouse with your son, the more confidence your kid has. The more you're like playing with them, body slamming them, pushing them around, like they gain confidence in themselves, ironically being pushed, manhandled, and thrown around. Like there's a video, I don't know if you've seen it, where like the dad has his daughter and he picks her up and he gently lays her down on the beanbag, and then his son comes over and he like one hand suplexes him on the ground. Daughter comes over, daddy, do me. Little soft kid flips him up, throws him in the air like a pizza, and then slams him again. And the kid is laughing. The little boy is having such a great time. The girl is having a great time, and each of them are benefiting from the relationship that they have with their father that is unique to how you're raising them.
Yeah, it's a cool story, to see that, because girls need that emotion and they need to understand the emotion, where boys need to understand that emotion, but they're not going to for a long time, and they need to be able to test their abilities and build their confidence and their resilience and test their father, because their father is the king of the hill, so to speak, for them, and they need to test those waters with them. And you have to get on the floor. Like I hate getting on the floor sometimes. I will literally lay on the floor with the intention of, I know the second I lay down, one of my boys is going to come and jump on me, whether I want him to or not, because you have to take that extra time of, I'm going to get the crap kicked out of me right now for the benefit of my son, testing the waters to see if he can surpass dad yet or not.
Well, and that's where I don't know. I'm not yet a father, but like anytime I'm around my friends' kids, I think I have become the jungle gym.
100%.
Every single one of my friends' kids, they all know wrestling is always on the table. I don't get to go over to your house and just sit down and relax, because if we do sit down and relax, Hunter's going to jump on my back, and then Parker's going to attack me from the front, and it's play, but it's aggressive. And I don't think there is never a time, especially with Hunter, where it reaches a point where we reach an emotional boundary. And then we have to have what I think is actually really healthy is the discussion of, why did it get there? Because it's like, he wants so bad to beat me. He wants so bad to beat you up, but he doesn't hurt you. And so when you do the exact same thing to him, it hurts him, but it doesn't hurt you in the exact same way. And so taking that like analogy a little bit more, like he ends up crying, or like he'll grab your arm and punch you. And so to respond, you grab both hands and be like, don't punch me. And then him trying to pull away, he hurts himself. And I'm like, I'm not letting you hit me. So hold on to it. And then we have to like go through like, okay, I'm doing it as a means of protecting myself. because a young boy can still hit certain areas of the body, and that has happened many of times, and you go down, that you're protecting it. And it's just like, I think watching that and being a part of it, you see the benefits, especially in young men, but never once am I thinking of doing that with like a young girl. I don't know. Do you wrestle with Maddie?
Every once in a while, she gets a little bug in her to want to wrestle, but you can't cross any boundaries, you know. And I think it's too, especially with guys in general, like that sense of competition. Like it's something that never leaves us, that we always want and desire, you know, even through high school with sports, and as we get older, we still believe we can play sports and we can't. To obviously the obsession with fantasy football now, like there's this level of competition that we need as men. And I think that's what helps us grow too, right? Is this competition with brothers and kind of wrestling around, so to speak, with one another and trying to get the best of one each other, because we need that to build each other up.
Okay, so within all that competition, do you think that there's an unhealthy competition amongst dads?
I mean, probably. I think, well, especially I look at kids' sports now, right? Like it's no longer kids play sports to have fun, which, you know, with I get it. With I hate the participation awards and all that kind of stuff because I think it's just a wrong way to put it. But now, especially with sports, like you kids don't play sports to play sports anymore. They play sports to get to the next level, period. And that's at all ages now, where it used to be like at a collegiate level, that's when you really got crazy with it, or at a senior level. I think the parents are getting so involved with that because they want their kids to be this because they weren't. And I think they're pushing a lot harder than they should be in this competition, which is it's an unrealistic reality, you know.
I think it's interesting because I mean, I follow a lot of football, and the guys that I watched growing up playing football, they're now kids, are now in college, and they're getting to that point of that higher level. And it was interesting what one of them had said was, it was an interview with Christian McCaffrey, and his dad had played professional football as well. And he goes, I was never under the disillusion of what it took to become a professional athlete. And he was talking about when he was a kid, and he was at a national event with other running backs, and he goes, oh, I'm afraid to say his name because he was better than me and I won't ever give him that leg up on me. But he was talking about another running back around the country that was better than him at 10 years old. And he goes, I had this chip on my shoulder ever since I was little, but I knew one thing is my dad always reminded me how much harder I needed to work, not because it was a discipline thing, not because it was anything else. He goes, I wanted to be the best that I could, but my dad always knew how much harder everyone else around you was going to work. And so he instilled in me the work ethic and the value to take my game. He goes, I wasn't the best. You know, the other guy that he was talking about was Sony Michel, who's a running back for a bunch of different teams. He got tossed around, but never reached the level that Christian McCaffrey is now, who's drafted like top 3 every year in fantasy football. And it's just an interesting thing that if you haven't done it, you're more likely to criticize it. But if you have done it, you're more likely to show how to be successful in it. And I thought that was really interesting coming from like a sports perspective, from guys who are competing now at the highest level, acknowledging what their dad had taught them wasn't like, oh, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, it's just, I'm going to show you like, this is the level of work that you're going to need to put in order to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's actually a cool way to look at it. I think you can look at a lot of athletes, professional athletes, and look at how they were raised, right? It's some of the guys that are the best of the best, and they're the best of the best because their father instilled into them, you have to be the best or else. Versus some of the other guys like that were like, okay, you can be the best, but I'm going to teach you how to work hard, and I'm going to teach you how to do it the right way and the respectful way. You know, like Shaq is another good story of that, like his dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that story of like one of his first worst games where he did terrible. His dad's like, you're flying home tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. And then he took him down the street and was like, look at this homeless family. Like, how hard is this dad working? You know what I mean? Like, showed him like the value of what he's doing and how to work hard, and like instilled that into him. And like, you see that, like, yeah, you can teach your kids everything you can, but if you're not teaching them the respectful nature of it and how to go along the right way within that, you could be doing more harm than good.
Yeah. I've had this perception of anything that I do is like, I want the next generation to have to unlearn what I had to learn as much as possible. Like how much of your life have you spent unlearning things that other people have taught you?
Let's see. I'm 36, so 36 years. Yeah.
Like there's so many aspects of it that, you know, I I personally want to be the type of example to where I'm never going to tell you to do something that I'm unwilling to do. Like that has been a philosophy of mine ever since I started coaching. You know, I've coached high school sports at a varsity level, and there was one thing like I could not stand. I still can't to this day when I see an adult yell at a kid for missing a block or missing a line, and like, bro, you are 300 pounds and you want these kids to go run laps because they're out of shape? Like, how dare you? How dare you have the audacity to tell these kids that they're not doing enough when you can barely make a lap? Like, I made it a personal thing that, like, if I'm ever going to discipline you, I'm going to discipline myself in the process. And I had this one thing, short story, is that I had girls who were just behaving, they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And I said, if you guys ever bring me to this level, we're going to run until I'm tired. And one of my captains, who is a senior who's been on my program for like 3 years, literally stopped everyone. She goes, "This dude runs marathons." He literally runs 6 miles before practice begins. And I've seen him out here because I come out early for practice and he's running the track. I am not doing this. And got into every one of like the younger kids' face, like knowing like, hey, I'm willing to meet that level, but I want to instill in me in that sense of like, hey, I want to be one of those guys. I want to constantly look for different things in my life that I can be better at. So it gives something to chase after rather than something to like criticize.
Yeah. And it's like, I think what's cool too about the Bible is when you look at the disciples, like you talk about the process of sanctification, like we're never going to fully get there, and it's okay until the time we are dead. We won't be fully sanctified till we're in heaven. And I think it's okay to understand that you are going to make mistakes and you're going to fail a lot, but it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You will get another opportunity. Be okay with it. Take some grace for yourself and be able to move on from that.
Yeah. And, you know, let's tie it in, and, you know, we're getting to a point where we try and make these about 30 minutes, but I always say it goes into intentionality, right? But backing up actions with your intentions. If you're one of those guys that says, hey, I do want to become a better dad, like there are websites out there that are doing some amazing things. There are things that we've got plans for in the future that would give other fathers like, hey, here's a heads up. If you live in the Phoenix area, what to go and do this weekend. Like if you got young kids, there's always the Home Depots on the weekends. There's the sporting events, the games. You can wait till the last minute and buy cheap seats at the very, very top. You know, don't park close to the stadium. Park far away. Park where it's free and walk with your kid. Have a conversation with them along the way. Bring your own snacks and your own food, and you can make cheap things out of really cool experiences.
Yeah. And having the adverse side of that, where I never went to a stadium, I think, ever until I was an adult. But, fun things like the trampoline growing up was a big deal because we were like the only kids on the block to have a trampoline. And that was the camp out central, so like creating a tent or camping awning over that, or camping in the backyard, building a fort in the house. You have a dining room, everybody's got a dining room table of some sort.
Yeah.
Pull out those chairs, throw some sheets over that thing, man.
Broomsticks.
Grab some books, grab an iPad, watch a movie in there, man. The kids will eat that up.
Yeah.
And I mean, I enjoy that too. I think it's fun.
And you can always like grow on that too. I mean, you have a few extra bed sheets that you change out your sheets for, pull them all out. You probably got extra sheets for your kids, get those out. You use what you've got to kind of create those experiences. And gosh, I mean, you're going to be tired. getting down on all fours, man. 36 years old, 37 years old. It's tough.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, it starts with taking care of yourself. And that is probably the single most important thing. If you want to be better, you got to be better yourself in order for you to be better for people around you. I know myself, I've been trying to read more, which I don't read books very well. But one of the books that I read recently is called Becoming a King by Morgan Snyder, which was an incredible read. He was mentored by John Elridge, which, wow, the heart, love it to death. But it talks about really kind of taking back what is rightfully yours as a man. And I think it was a really good start for me. I think even so much, my wife actually kind of seconded this the other day. She goes, "You've been different the last couple of months." And I think it's because of that book you read. And I really appreciated that, of like kind of getting that acknowledgement of, hey, you took the time to read this book and invested time into yourself. And it shows. It shows to her, it shows to our kids, it shows to the people around us, and it shows to the community, which I really appreciated that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like the one thing that I think we overlook a lot of the times is I think that as a society we've gotten away from books. And the more you're reading, the more advice that you have, and that basically gives your brain something to feed off of for a longer period of time for when things do get difficult, when things do get tough and you don't have the energy. It could be like, "Hey, I've got no money, but the fort, dude, I remember reading that one time in that book, like he just built a fort with his kids. Yeah, your house is going to be an absolute disaster afterwards and you're going to have to clean it up, but that's something you've got now with your son or your daughter for a long time."
And I'm actually going to throw this out here because this just came to me, but look at the books that you've read or the books that you have. And those are the books that'll tell the story of who you are.
I
right?
like that.
Yeah.
Especially
like
the Bible.
Totally right. The Bible, I would hope, is part of that because I
Yeah.
think that's just a
Plethora of
life
stories.
lesson of, yeah, it's the handbook on life, really, right? According to Dave Roach, like it's the handbook for life. And I look at like one of the first books that really stuck onto me was The Hatchet, which was about a kid getting stuck in the woods with this hatchet and surviving, which is, kind of what I'm all about. And, becoming a king, and some of these other books, like Francis Chan, Multiply, and, looking at one of your books right now, like John Maxwell, like leadership and money and finances. Like I think the things that you read and the things that you choose to invest in really say a lot about who you are.
Yeah. It literally anything that you invest in yourself, becomes a future investment, especially in like your kids.
And it's about how you choose, right? You're choosing to invest in yourself, which could seem selfish, but it's not selfless because you're trying to make yourself better for the purpose of being a better person for the people around you.
Oh, dude, 100%. 100%. And I think that's like the end goal. A lot of things is like, it can be seen as exactly what you said, selfish. But like if you're in true altruistic perception is, hey, now that I have this responsibility of being a dad, or I have this responsibility of being a husband, I now have to invest in me so that I can invest in you. And you don't have to have like an actual hard book. I am the king of audiobooks. And that's why we podcast. We know that 30 minutes, we're trying to be like, hey, maybe that's your commute to work. 15 minutes to work in the morning, 15 works. And you pick up a podcast, have a conversation, learn about a different story, talk about different things, and hopefully you'll realize like, oh, maybe I want to be a better dad, but maybe I need to check out the book that Luke just recommended, or let's go look and Google search like what dad books are out there. What are the top 5 dad books? All right, man. Any stories?
Yeah, I'll tell. Since we're talking about kids, I'll tell about the first time that I took Hunter hunting.
Hunter hunting.
Yeah, we did opening week quail hunt, and it was my first time taking him out, which I was a little hesitant on because it drives me crazy on quail hunts when I bring the kids and they're like, I'm tired, I have grass and cactus in my shoes and whatever else, and it's just like, this is my special place and I'm bringing you with. This is important to me. This should be important to you. And we weren't seeing any birds, and it was really frustrating. And then sure enough, after like a mile of hiking, we finally started to get into a little covey, and my brain was going, go, 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 while I was trying to pay attention to him with his headphones on behind me. And sure enough, I was just pushing him. Finally saw the birds, took a shot, missed completely, shot again, missed completely. Birds flew off. I was frustrated, but then I turned back and looked, and he had a big old grin on his face because it was all exciting and a cool experience and first time moment for him. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and dude, that's just cool because I think even if you don't get something, I mean, most guys will basically say, even at the end of the day, good morning hunting. You could either wake up super early, go out. I always say you're chasing sunrises, and you get the beauty of God's glory in the morning. Now I can't imagine. I'm excited for the day, like to bring my own kid along with that. Hunter's gonna have a story when he gets older, man. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys, thank you so much for enjoying. If you like what you've heard, man, like, comment, share. If you're a guy, we're probably going to post some stuff on Instagram this week of other stories. Like, what's your guys' best recommendation for guys who are seeking? If you're part of the 62% of dads who want to be better, what's your best advice? What have you heard from other people? Share your thoughts online. And we'd love to hear what you guys have to say, because we have as much to learn from you as, we get to sit around and have these conversations with ourselves.
Yeah, we got to mentor each other. It
Exactly.
really comes down to it.
Yep. We're all in this together, man. Hope you guys have a blessed day, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Yeah, see you next time.